seminars.com.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
Pastor Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church is our guest, and gosh, what a surprise that we're going to talk about the Capitol Hill thing.
Yeah. How can you not?
Yeah, how can you not, and how can you say anything that already hasn't been said?
Yeah.
But I will say it's a culmination of 4 years of antagonism in our country. The Republicans are to blame. President Trump certainly shares the bulk of the responsibility for this outrage. Mm-hmm. But I'm not letting the Democrats off.
Sure.
Nancy Pelosi's been spitting and cussing, and that little performance she gave last night on 60 Minutes, where she was practically weeping for our country. She was weeping for herself, I have a feeling. I have just lost faith in these old people.
Well, I mean, there are, I think what I would like to see more of is nuanced conversation. I think we so easily go to defend Trump to the bitter end, or, onto the opposite side of just using this as an opportunity to move forward Democratic agendas and whatnot. And I would like to be able to see more Republicans who can also denounce violence and to say that what happened was not okay. I don't think you have to denounce republicanism to do that, but it seems like a lot of what we see is things like, anyone I know who has voted for Trump is responsible for this, and just go ahead and unfriend me now. Those kinds of things too. It looks like we've got a caller who is just flashing in.
You're getting to be a radio professional here. This is AM 1400 KVFD. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
You want Republicans to denounce violence? Could you name one, and I mean one, Democrat that renounced violence all through the summer?
Oh, you're just all charged up about this whole Trump thing, aren't you? This is what, your third straight day on the air?
No, this is my third straight day. I haven't been on a few days, but come on, find one. All the protests and all the violence, Portland, Seattle, Minnesota.
Those were
Democrat that denounced it. They encouraged it all.
Oh, those were peaceful protesters burning down federal buildings.
That's right. They were peaceful, right?
Well, yeah, I think it should go both ways. I really do, and I would have said that back then too. And I think the challenge that we're going in on both sides now is that any big issue becomes like a national Rorschach test, where we're all kind of interpreting the events, in looking for ways to kind of point out the faults in what the other side is thinking. But yeah, I think, throughout this last year, I think just like what Trump was saying is he was pointing out how bad the violence was in the protests and the uprisings and things in the summer. And I think if he's going to do that there, then we should be on kind of the same page here as well. I mean, I think for both sides, the criticism should go both ways.
Well, I don't know if it was violence, the denunciation of violence, that's really the issue, frankly. There has been such venomous hatred and rage, mainly coming, and I will blame the Democrats, frankly, for this. They didn't get their little queen into office like they thought they were going to. And oh my God, it's the end of the world, and Trump stole the election, the Republicans stole the election, on and on and on. So we can, first of all, get an investigation that went on 2 years, and showed nothing. Then we can impeach, which also failed because they frankly didn't have any evidence.
Yeah,
they didn't have any evidence of justifiable impeachment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, and I think that Trump had every right to initiate investigations after this 2020 election and to go through that whole process. I wholeheartedly want to stand up for his ability to do so. I think the challenge was that he did that, but they didn't really present evidence in court that any of the judges really did anything with.
Oh, Trump is wrong. There's no doubt. But the Democrats, as the call, are you still there, caller?
You bet.
You weren't in Washington on Wednesday, were you? You weren't that guy with that big buffalo horn hat.
No, I was not.
All right. Jason, what is it? Jacob Angeli or whatever that guy's name, and he's a big QAnon guy. Cruises around.
Yeah, see, we will denounce those that entered and did damage and such. That's not the way to go about it.
Yeah.
Who's we, white
but
man?
Now you have to look at Muriel Bowser said she would have the National Guard standing on by. Well, where the heck were they standing on by at?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was a massive.
There should have been a barrier put up there on their fault. I can't condone anything that they did going in there, and I'm not sure. You can't guarantee it was 100% Trump people either.
I tell you what, they're
there were
afraid
definitely
of.
many Trump people in there. There's no doubt about that.
And Nancy Pelosi had a big chance last night on 60 Minutes to bring the country together a little bit. She passed on it. She failed miserably. She came off as a partisan hack every time Leslie Stahl would ask her a reasonable question. Oh, it's Trump. It's Trump. It's Trump. No, it's not the Republicans. It's not the Democrats. No, we have no responsibility. It's the Republicans, and more importantly, it's Trump. I mean, she's 80 years old. I think she's had a stroke. Steny Hoyer is 81.
Yeah. Then you also have Joe Biden out there saying he wants to unite, and then now he wants the heads of Cruz and Hawley and others and that. Well, is that the way we're going to unite?
Well,
you're going to eliminate all of your competition, and then we will be united.
Well, Joe Biden's in a pretty precarious position. He could be zapped out of that presidential seat pretty fast by the Democrats and have Kamala
coming.
installed.
But have you heard what Louis Farrakhan said?
Louis Farrakhan, my man. What did he say?
He said the death watch is on now, so Kamala can get in.
That's the first thing I've heard him say that I totally agree with. Don't you agree with that? I mean, the death watch is on.
Well, the death watch is on, yeah. Well, they can remove him about any time they want to, but I think they'll wait 2 years.
Yeah. Well, as soon as he gets up at the podium and can't talk, and he keeps shaking, and his finger.
He don't have to go up to the podium. He's hiding in his basement.
Well, that was last summer. He was hiding in his basement, but he's got to
come. He'll be hiding in the White House basement now.
He's got to come out sooner or later, and because he is going to be the president of the United States, and it's not going to be a pretty picture. He's already got the facelift death mask on. You've seen that, right? And all the makeup and stuff. Wow.
See, the problem is the entire media, 90% or more of the entire media is just lined up in step with the Democrat agenda.
Oh, without a doubt. No, soon to be president.
Leslie Stahl, she did kind of get tough, but I think they kind of realized that, hey, maybe we need a little balance over here. And they haven't had it. Chuck Todd, look at him and Meet the Press, whatever. Come on.
All right.
And then not only the media, look at your late night talk show hosts. Every one of them for 4 years been railing. Their whole monologue has been blah 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 anti-Trump.
Hey, it sells. It sells.
Well, yeah.
There's nothing more important in that business than ratings. Don't kid you. They might be speaking from conviction, but I doubt it. I don't think that Morning Joe and that dingbat that's with him have a sincere.
Well, that's his wife.
Yeah, I know that. Give me a break, will you? They stayed in the they stayed in the White House when Trump was first elected. They had Trump on their show all the time, and they were fawning in their admiration of Donald Trump before he became president, and then shortly after. Of course, that didn't work well with the liberal MSNBC. And by the way, since they started taking shots all the time at Trump, and Mika, she's brilliant, isn't she? She's great for rolling her eyes, not saying anything of substance, but she can roll her eyes like nobody I've ever seen. So as soon as they started taking off on Trump, their ratings went up. And when ratings go up, salaries go up, profits go up. That's the name of their game, period, end of story. People accuse me of doing that here in Fort Dodge. I want Fort Dodge. How much money are we supposed to make?
Yeah, you're getting your ratings up.
Yeah, I'm getting my ratings up. Oh, I'm trying to recruit new listeners to my radio show. No, not really. Hey, thanks for your call.
Yeah, have a good day.
You
Yep.
too. All right, there we go.
Well, I mean, I think the challenge is we have to acknowledge that I think there is bias in mainstream media, just as we said, but I also think there are contested versions of truth out there. And so how do we find the truth, and then how do we do that in such a way where you can have different opinions? I mean,
Contested versions of the truth.
well, yeah, I mean, people talking about alternative facts.
That was Kellyanne. Yeah.
Yeah, and
You sounded a little bit like Kellyanne there. Yeah. Oh, that was, and then what they were talking about, whether but Trump had more people in the square in the Washington public areas
Mhm.
after his inauguration rather than in the Million Woman March, where
Oh,
Madonna got up there with her hat on and was babbling like a loon.
yeah.
When did she become an authority on political matters?
But I mean, I think it's a real challenge, and the internet has made this very complicated. We believe as a society in the importance of free speech.
Yes.
I don't have to like what you say, but I do need to defend your right to say it, right?
More or less.
But at the same, I mean, I think there are limits, and I think that's what we're kind of struggling through, especially right now with all the social media bans on Trump. And you cannot deny that his language incited violence this last week.
Oh, without a doubt.
So I firmly want to say that, but I also I want to defend people's ability to speak. Now people can say,
the
well,
First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason. Without that, there is no real freedom.
yeah. Well, now people will say, well, Facebook and Twitter, those are private companies, and if you don't want to use them, you don't have to. But I'm all the more alarmed that when alternatives to those private companies are now being blacklisted too, like Parler. And so at some point, you literally do cut off somebody their ability to utilize any kind of internet platform to speak. But at the same time, when I see some of the things that people are saying, I kind of wonder if it really is in everybody's best interest to not have misinformation out there.
No, I think Parler should be reinstated. They're suing Amazon now.
Mhm.
Of course, when you're the richest man in the world, I don't suppose that bothers you all that much. But
Yeah.
It's an outrage that Parler was silenced. However, I am in favor of fact checking.
Yes.
I mean, I think that all these major media sites, social media sites, Twitter and Facebook,
Mhm.
should be responsible for the content on their pages. Now, if something is said that is wrong or clearly erroneous or suspect, that's all they have to do is say, well, we fact checked and this isn't really right.
Yeah.
I know that puts them in a position that they don't want to be put in,
Mhm.
but that's too bad.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us understood exactly the power of social media 10 years ago.
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't even have a Facebook account in 2005.
Mhm.
Now I spend a lot of my time on Facebook and Twitter.
Mhm. And I think and we have to be able to speak the truth, but to do so with love. I mean, that's straight from the Bible. And I think the challenge within the church is we sometimes err too far on one side or the other. We either focus too much on speaking the truth and then we cancel people, or in church history, before that became a term, it was excommunicating people, right? You had heretics, and if they didn't believe the right truth, then they're just cast out of the community.
Don't forget that great tradition of stoning people.
Yeah. Or burning people at the stake, yeah. So
you're not Christian, we're stoning you to death.
Or even if you're Christian, but you don't believe this kind of doctrine that I think you should, then we cast people out or execute them. So obviously that's not the answer. But then also on the other side, to just say, well, we're just gonna be loving and accepting of anything, whether it's true or not, I don't think that's helpful either. And so there really is this fine line of loving individuals, of being open and in relationship with people, even when we don't agree with each other. But we do have to seek the truth together, and we have to be open to what that truth is.
Martin Luther, of course, was a Catholic priest, and he was objecting to some of the things he saw in Catholicism at the time.
Yeah.
Because Catholicism was selling the office of cardinals or bishops or a number of things.
Yeah.
And they were turning a blind eye to some of the terrible things that were selling indulgences, for example.
Mhm.
But Luther was complaining about that. And a priest or bishop, I don't remember which it was, who was in Germany, almost casually excommunicated Martin Luther. Now, history tells us this priest or bishop was a real dimwit, and he took too much on himself. The point is, he sparked this dimwit, sparked the Protestant Revolution. If Luther said, I'm excommunicated, I'm the one who's keeping the true faith.
Yeah.
And he was right, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the whole Reformation happened,
The Reformation, John Calvin, the rest of them.
Yeah. I mean, Protestant
Reformation.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but it was sparked by an idiot priest.
Yeah. And I think there really is something to being able to profess the truth, to take on that prophetic role. I mean, the prophets spoke truth to power. Think about the prophet Nathan, where we get King David's response in Psalm 51. The prophet Nathan is one who points out the sin that David had committed with stealing Bathsheba from Uriah. And think about the guts that would have been required from the prophet Nathan to say to the king, you are in the wrong.
Yeah, I'd say David was really wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to have this guy's wife, so I'll send him to the front in battle so he gets killed. Then I'll round up Bathsheba. I think David was already hooked up with
her. He already had rounded her up. And he had knocked her up, too.
Whoa!
That was his whole issue. So...
knocked her up, did he?
Well, it's just a little play on words there. He said rounded her up. And so... yeah.
Who was the child of that union?
That child actually died.
Was that God intervening? And
I think according to how it is in maybe I want to say 2 Samuel, but then ultimately, eventually, from Bathsheba, King Solomon was born, from David and Bathsheba, who then became the heir to the throne.
Sure,
but yeah, so I think there is this prophetic role that we need to speak the truth, but we also are called to be known by our love, that the world would know us by our love. And that ultimately that's the challenge, right? Is speaking the truth in love, not shying away from the truth. And so in these times when people in our churches, I mean, I'll just say as a pastor, I get people from both sides of the spectrum, and some saying, well, have you looked at this? Or have you seen that? And kind of presenting alternative versions of current events. And not that I need to be the arbiter of truth as a pastor, but hopefully I'm pointing us toward truth. And hopefully people on both ends feel like they can be a part of the church, a part of the body of Christ.
Pastor Austin Hill is our guest. I'm so glad a minister of Christ was the first to say knocked up on this program. It would have kept me out of trouble. See, if I'd have said it, there would have been a petition to have me removed from the air again.
Well, now you've got special dispensation.
Special dispensation. I thought you were a priest. All right. The news is coming up. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
It's 2:29. News is next.
We've been waiting for COVID-19 vaccines to be developed. Now, waiting for them to get to us. But you can do more than wait. You have powerful ways to help slow the spread right now and protect your family and loved ones too. Here's how. Watch your distance. Stay at least 6 feet away from folks you don't live with. It's risky to be indoors with them too.